Good morning, afternoon, evening, day. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live broadcast of the Engadget Podcast recording. I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe this morning. Today, we are joined by Matt Smith, UK Bureau Chief.
The
Hello.
Brady Bunch thing works. Hi, hello. Yeah, that's me, Matt Smith. I'm here in this corner.
We've got special guest, Mr. Mobile himself, the Michael Fisher.
Good
over here.
morning, all. Thank you for having me aboard today.
Ahoy. And over on the bottom right, there we go. ET phoning home right there. Is Ben Elman, our podcast producer. Hey, Ben.
Hello.
All right. So today it is pretty obvious what we're going to talk about. It's the banner is not exactly what it should be, but the YouTube title is completely correct. We're here to talk about Samsung's foldables and wearables that were just launched yesterday. We're going to not waste too much time right now, but just a note for those of you who are joining us for the first time or you're new to the stream today, what's going on here is that we're actually recording the audio version of the Engadget podcast that will hit all podcast platforms later tonight or early tomorrow. So during those segments, we won't be able to talk directly to you, dear viewer, but we will have segment breaks and there will be mistakes. We will go back and redo sentences and stuff like that. So you're really getting a behind the scenes look at what goes on. But in segment breaks, we can talk and answer your questions and chat directly with you. So if you're a big Mr. Mobile fan, this is your time to get all the saucy questions in there.
It is far too early in the morning to be doing anything saucy at all, Sherlyn, but I will do my best.
I agree with you. I'm not at all a morning person. Matt Smith is coming to us from the UK, from London, so it's actually not too early for him. He's the only one.
It's not too early for me to get saucy. No,
the sauce is flowing over there already. Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Hayato Hughes Man is on our chat saying, honestly amazed you got Fisher or Michael awake and presentable at 10 a.m. I'm surprised too.
Our mutual friend Jaime Rivera just said something similar to me in Telegram 20 seconds ago. However did they convince you to be up this early is beyond me, he says. Well, look, stop blowing up my spot. I like night times. Sherlyn, you're carrying it off quite well.
I was just saying that it's me that is the reason, the power of my friendship is really why you're here. or the Engadget.
Actually,
anyway.
You know what's funny? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I was just thinking during your intro that this is the oldest tech podcast I have listened to. I've listened to this podcast for 13 years. So it is, I think I've only been on it once before, and even that was years ago. So I'm very, very happy to be here. Genuinely, thank you.
Oh, Mr.
Wilson,
Mobile.
Wow.
Oh, God. So sweet.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good impression.
We're going to get ready to start recording very soon, but I do want to shout out the people who are here already in the chat, starting with the people we actually know in real life. Like I said, Hayato is here. David Immel, somewhat casual acquaintance, right, David Immel?
Sounds like the folks at the old MKBHD office don't have enough to do right now. What's going on?
They don't. I feel like they need more work. Yeah, over at Marquez's office. But also hi to our regular audience members like Dhruv Karmokar, Gabriel, who's here for 2 days in a row, Mark Dell, our big time regular, chunkster of a fan, and by chunkster that's referring to the size of his fanship or fandom rather than any sort of physical reference.
This isn't euphemism chat. It's too early for the euphemism section, right?
Is it early for you? Saucy times.
Yeah.
And
don't
finally,
like this nickname already.
Shout out to a few less familiar names. I know Tyreek has been around, but not regular level just yet. And then Tom Farrell, Jamie, Eric, Kurt Cobain, not the real Kurt Cobain, Borovics, Levente,
R.I.P.
and more. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
Okay.
And if you're new, come back. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh yeah, all right.
Okay.
My video is definitely lagging, so I think what I might do is just to make sure that nothing else goes wrong, I might drop out for a second and reset my router or something. Hopefully that'll help. If you guys, I will let's start the intro. I'll make a note of that. You guys go on, and then I'll just rejoin after my router is reset. How about that?
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that. Cool. I'm ready to go. Julio, our video producer, we can start with the podcast part. Cool. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Engadget Podcast. I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe, and this week, Devindra, my usual co-host, is still out on time off, taking a much-needed rest. So joining me as guest co-host is all the way from across the pond, UK Bureau Chief Matt Smith. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Sherlyn. How you doing?
You know, kind of been a struggle bus this week, but
I know we keep having this same. I mean, we both did the Samsung live stream yesterday, so we've literally had this small talk chat way too recently.
We've talked too much.
We're both recovering, right?
Indeed. Today we're obviously, like we mentioned, going to talk all about Samsung's Unpacked event that was just yesterday as of this recording, and all the foldables that were launched, the Galaxy Z Flip, the Galaxy Z Fold 3, and more. We've got a special guest, Mr. Mobile, coming to join us for that discussion. I will let you say hi in a little bit, but there's also some other news we want to dive into, like what is going on with Apple's CSAM. So stick around for that as well. If you're enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. And if you want to talk with us directly, we actually live stream the recording every Thursday morning at about 10 a.m. Eastern. So head on over to the Engadget YouTube channel where you can ask us your questions live, leave us your feedback on air as well. Okay, I don't know if Ben's back, but we can go right into...
Yeah, well, I never left because I want to make sure.
Oh.
I never left because I want to... Oh, sorry about that. But I wanted to make sure that I got a note of when the Unpacked segment starts, and then I'm going to drop off.
Okay, cool. So I'm about to start it now, yeah.
Can I ask
all
you,
right
before you talk, Sherlyn, I'm sorry, just a technical thing. Do I still sound all right over here?
Yep, to me. Ben?
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, this
you sound good.
Get big because there's a big old truck outside because New York City, isn't it great?
Your sound booth is so amazing. You're fine. Like, you're doing great.
Just in case. Let's do it.
All right, so here's where I'll intro you and I'll cue you up to say hi, Fisher. I call you Fisher. I know that's not like everyone's favorite, but is that okay?
Takes me right back to my ROTC days. Yeah. Fisher, get over here.
All right, Ben, about to start, and then we will take the conversation, let the conversation flow so you can reset your router. All right.
Okay.
So the big event this week was Samsung's Galaxy Unpacked that happened on Wednesday, August 11th. The company launched a slew of new products, 2 phones, 2 watches. I mean, I guess that's technically it, 2 S Pens, so 6 gadgets altogether. And of course, this is like the first time the company has done 2 new foldables in one event, if I don't remember it wrong. So joining us to talk all about that is, I guess, I like to call him a foldable aficionado. I don't think I've seen anyone who's a bigger fan of foldables. Mr. Mobile himself, aka Michael Fisher, or the other way around, Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile. But hello. Thanks for joining us.
Whichever way you like it, Sherlyn. No, thank you for having me. And you are correct. I also don't know anyone who is a bigger fan of foldables than I, but it is always nice to hear that acknowledged. Is it something to brag about? Probably not. Anyway,
I mean, have you thought about pivoting to foldables, Fisher?
No. Actually, you know what's funny is I think I bought that domain after a recent other podcast appearance where someone suggested it. So I think I own that. Yeah.
Great minds.
Amazing. Mr. Foldable Mobile, maybe.
Ooh, we're getting there.
Mouthful.
Yeah. Let's brainstorm a little later today.
We will. But so, like I said, at his event earlier this week, Samsung unveiled the Z Fold 3, the Z Flip 3. These are technically the 3rd generation of foldables the company has made, as well as the Galaxy Watch 4 and Watch 4 Classic. And I think the big outstanding feature of the Z Fold 3 is S Pen support. But do you agree with that? Is that the biggest update, Fisher?
I think, well, it's the most easily classifiable. It's the most noticeable, right? I think that a lot of the big changes are under the hood, as they often are with smartphones. I think the Fold has the fewer number of obvious upgrades. So just looking at it, the S Pen is the biggest one. But you have to buy it separately. You know, we have to keep in mind that it's not like the Note, where it was just built in. It was a part of the phone that came out and then you could use it. It's like, no, you have to pay extra, and then you have to get a case to carry it in. So that's, in my view, a little bit of a bummer, but I think given how many people I've talked to that used the Galaxy Note and said they forgot the S Pen existed, maybe it was a smart call on Samsung's part to make it optional.
Do you draw on a foldable, or did you wish? I know because you've owned a Z Fold 2 for a while now. Have you ever wished you had an S Pen to use on that screen?
I have. Part of that is due to the nature of my and our occupation, right? Like, doing production on the road is much easier with an S Pen, because it's like a little mouse. But also we have to sign a lot of forms, a lot of release forms, loan agreements, stuff like that. And while Adobe Fill and Sign is good for that, it's also just sometimes faster to be able to jot. But art, no, it's mostly for work. And I did use it a lot back when I used to. My lease would come up for renewal every September, which is about when the new Note would come out, and I would like renew my lease on the Note.
Power move.
Yeah.
What a power move.
Well, I think you timed that perfectly with your landlord. Probably you're like, September's when I get access to an S Pen. I'm gonna sign.
I can do.
I don't know, if I'm a nefarious landlord and I see a guy with a brand new Note every time he's signing his lease, I'm putting up the rent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is why you haven't been able to negotiate your rent down, probably.
See, thank you for. I knew there was a reason I came here. Thank you for the advice.
For pointing it out to you, Matt. What do you think about the new S Pen support on the Z Fold 3? And then I'm going to run down all the other updates to Z Fold 3.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think it's very much like the most important thing they can kind of point to, because it's a bit of a, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution. It's that kind of rote line at this point. And you have the kind of handy narrative of them not having a Galaxy Note this year. So you can kind of just point them to them. Even just gossiping about whether we're ever going to see a Note again, or whether the Folds are replacing the Note. All of this stuff is kind of free. Samsung taking up free mental space in your head, making you think about Galaxy phones, right? But yeah, I don't see anything hugely remarkable over the Fold 2. It's nice that it's more durable. It still doesn't quite look durable enough for me, irrespective of what they're saying. And yeah, I'm a bit more of a fan of the Flip, but we can move on to that later.
I feel like that's the biggest concern that people have been coming at me with. So whenever I show my hands-on article to someone on the internet, they're just like, I still can't drop money on something that might be so much more damage prone than a regular phone. And to that end, I think Samsung did an important thing this year. I personally feel like it's important, which is add water resistance. So the two new foldables are IPX8 rated for water resistance. X is 0 for dust resistance, by the way. So still, dust ingress not completely resistant just yet. Fisher, you have had more experience with older foldable phones than I have. And this is something you probably are able to provide more insight on. Does the Fold 3 so far feel stronger than older versions?
In terms of feel, it is so similar to the Fold 2 that I think only long-term testing will reveal how durable it actually is. But I made it a policy of buying every foldable I could and using them for as long as possible, particularly the ones that are sold in North America. So I used the original Fold for something like 6 months before the 2 came out. I used the 2 for 10 months or so. And I found the two surprised me. I have not babied that device. I throw it in my bag alongside of a lot of other stuff. I just mash my thumb on it to close it one hand, and I'm doing something else. I kind of toss it around. And the Fold 2 has been a real trooper in terms of that. The only the only way I could get it to break was to use it for that long, because my display did fracture from what I understand is probably a fatigue, almost like a repetitive stress injury from too many folds.
From the crease kind of thing.
Crease fatigue. Yeah, exactly. So I was able to use Samsung's Z Premier service and get it replaced within a week. Fortunately, they did that for free, and I don't think they knew who I was, so it was a good experience. But still,
do you know who I am?
Yeah, right. Yeah, getting red-faced, shouting on the phone. No, they were lovely. And so I was most concerned about that, frankly, when it came to the Z Fold 3 rather, and I'm still. Despite Samsung's claims about this being 80% stronger, I think a lot of that is riding on the top layer, this new screen protector that's been applied. The UTG, the ultra-thin glass layer itself, is, by all indications and what Samsung engineers told me, is the same material. So I genuinely hope that this new PET top layer helps prevent that kind of failure mode that I saw.
I think that one of the issues too with the older Z Fold 2, at least from what I hear from Sam Rutherford, our common friend as well, and who himself has also bought a Z Fold 2 and has been living with it for a long time, is that the old screen protector also would bubble up a lot, right? There would and that's because it was using the old TPU, whereas the new Z Fold 3 uses a stretchable, flexible PET. And so maybe because it can stretch and flex with the screen, the bubbles are less likely to appear over time.
Don't these all seem like things they should have done on the 2 though? I think that's my main issue with these expensive phones is there's so many things still left for them to fix, and you can't expect people to spend so much money on these phones.
There's a lot of learning on the job,
yeah, so much learning on the job, and like I'm always the person that kind of moans about foldables, but I get that someone has to do it, and Samsung is the company to do it. I just think we're still a few generations away from it being like a more definitive, reliable, foldable phone.
I think that's fair. I think that's probably fair. But another thing I like about watching Samsung do this is that look at how far we've come from the first Fold. I mean, can you imagine, besides the Note 7, can you imagine a worse product launch than the first Fold? I mean, it just imploded.
Yeah.
Yes.
And unfortunately,
no, that was the Note 7. That
pardon me. Oh, yes, you're right.
That exploded.
Yeah.
No, I like, and once it was re-released, it was actually a pretty good product, but by then its name was so sullied. But look at the evolving, nature of the quality of the Fold and the Flip since then. It's only been, less than 3 years, and they're much better products. They're much more useful products, and as we'll get to, I'm sure, they're much cheaper products too. So the pace is really quite fast, and that makes me excited. But I agree with you, Matt. I mean, they're not devices you can innately trust as well as you can the tried and true, oh my God, kill me, I'm falling asleep, stolid slab smartphone, which I never need to see another one of those again.
And
Go ahead, Matt.
I
was just going to say that you bring up a good point, Fisher, that the prices have dropped. So for the people who are unaware, the Z Fold 2 used to cost around $2,000. It launched at that price. Subsequently, the price did drop. Now the Z Fold 3 is launching at about $1,800. I mean, Samsung will tell us $1,799, but it's $1,800. And the Z Flip 3 in particular, I think had a more significant price drop. The original Z Flips launched at about $1,200, and then now it's going to be $999.99, which is $1,000.
It was even higher. It was
$1,380,
and then it was $1,499.
Yeah, it nudged down, didn't it, briefly after launch? I think.
Yeah.
And
so
it's funny, Cher. I was going to interrupt with the
exact.
I was going to interrupt with the same point you just made about the price. That's the other major thing, isn't it? Like, and it's a kind of bigger indicator that there's not a huge leap specification wise, let's say, between the Fold 2 and the Fold 3. It's performing a similar job. I mean, there are notable upgrades, but it's a cheaper phone, so I feel that's even more compelling than anything they could have offered us, really. On a new Fold phone.
They took out that $200 travel charger that was in the box.
Well, that's because no one's going anywhere. No one's going anywhere. That's why. Yeah.
That's another thing I want to bring up, which is what's in the box, because a lot of people have thoughts about that. But the one thing is like having the price drop to sub $1,000 levels for the Flip and $200 ish for the Z Fold 3 is a sign that Samsung also wants to push this towards the mainstream, right? Like, I mean, talking about, so I talked to my therapist about the new phones yesterday, just so you know. My classic example of a regular person out in the wild, just my therapist and my mom.
So relatable content to share.
Yes. And I was like, he was like, what are you most excited about? And I was like, oh, the Flip, clearly, because like it's it's the same price as an iPhone. Like when I talked to him about it, he was like, "Oh, so it's the same price as a yeah. It's in the realm of your S21 Ultra. It's in the realm of your iPhone 12 Pro, even so." With that, I mean, you're not exactly getting a comparable phone in terms of the specs, I don't think, but it folds. It's tiny. It's cute. I mean, look at how many pink Razor V3s sold in the early 2000s. I'm sure this will sell like. I mean, I'm not sure, but like if there's anything about cute phones, they will sell like hotcakes to a certain demographic at least. What do you think, Fisher? Is that probably a good read or no?
I have to be very cautious when I talk about the Flip 3 because I just moved into it yesterday, as I think most of us did. We moved into these review devices, so I'm very hardcore honeymoon phase. But the Flip possesses a magic that I have been trying to quantify for the better part of a year, actually for more than a year. And this new one, because it solves the biggest problem with that last one, that unusably tiny outer display.
Yes.
It's so hard to not just give it a pass on literally everything.
Yes.
You know, it is stylish. It is classy. I can even forgive its god awful cream color.
I know.
It's a nice color. What are you talking about?
No, it's not. I hate that I got this one. I want the green.
In dental terms, we call that British teeth.
Oh God. Now I hate it even more, Matt. What the hell?
I like the color a lot on you. It's a great color for your shirt right now because it is this color.
Yeah, it is.
But you wear it better than any phone does. Let me tell you.
I had a reaction because on our video live stream right now, our live stream crew is scrolling through my Instagram, just throwing me under the bus or blowing up my spot. But anyhow, yes, I've been posing with the new Flip 3 because I'm so enamored with it. It's to me, you're right. I definitely give it a pass on a lot of things because it's cute, it's stylish, it's everything I've dreamed of since hearing about foldable screens, which is a regular size phone that can fold down in half.
Yes.
Whereas the Fold 3 is more like a phone and a tablet that doubles, that's in one device, and you can open up a phone that is a bigger screen.
But can we just hang a lampshade on that real quick because this is important to me. I sent a few tweets yesterday in case nobody
I saw.
Notice.
I did.
It bothers me that so many people react to these foldables in this way, right? Because look, the Fold is doubtless more utilitarian. You can get a lot more done with it. It is more useful. It is whatever. But everyone seems to want to judge phones based on some kind of practical measure. Like they have to justify themselves, these phones, based on what they can do for you and all these just regimented metrics of like, well, it's a phone, it should be a tool, and it's whatever. And somehow at somewhere along the way, it became undesirable for them to be fun, or that became less of a reason to want to buy them because, well, I like the way it looks and it's fun and it kind of reminds me of phones I used to have. And why is that not enough? Why can't we just have permission to buy things that make us happy in a good way? I'm not saying we shouldn't keep evaluating them. I'm not saying if it really S's the bed, I'm going to like give it a pass. Like I'll say its battery life sucks, which it probably does. But like, you should be allowed to like things. It's okay to like a phone. Stop it.
I think that speaks to a bigger fight over the corporate techno media conglomerate than it is about. I think you're absolutely allowed to like phones, Michael. I think it's just part of the curse of our jobs and these companies that you need to like ream off a list of numbers and, a battery life and a resolution to the screen and whether the camera's got more megapixels. We've done all these fights. Right. If you've been listening to the Engadget podcast for 13 years, I've been here 10 years, and it's always, we return to the numbers because it's a very easy way to make a value judgment and people understand numbers.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you on the fact that yes, we want, it should be okay to want to buy something just because it's fun. But I will say that that's also a sort of almost privileged view. But then let me come back to why I say that too. So privileged because not everyone has the money to throw at a phone that's just because it's fun, right? So that's where I'm talking about with the privilege. But then like if you're considering a phone like the Fold or the Flip anyway, you're already a privileged person. Like I think the people who the people who need to be very careful about how much money they spend and how much value they get out of that sort of a phone will not even be looking at these two devices, which is perfectly fine. And for them, there's
it's like the people who respond to any tweet from any tech blogger or personality who covers high-end products principally with first world problems. I'm like, oh man, cutting take, excellent. Yes, you've cut right to the heart of 100% of my job. Sorry, that's what it is. Yes, that is all I talk about is first world problems. If you know, like I don't know what to tell you.
The other thing I wanted to mention too was that I can tell this is a very close to your heart issue for you, Fisher, because you have a whole show or a series called When Phones Were Fun, don't you? And I love it. It's amazing. You dig up all these old, nostalgic devices or just completely wild and wacky devices that I don't even remember existed, and then you just take them for a spin and see how they work now, I guess.
And when I think that factors in, I'd be interested to hear you guys what your thoughts are on how these new flip, particularly the flip, ties into that, because I say it in every video where I cover them. Like the act of flipping this open and slamming it shut fires some long dormant neurons somewhere up here. And I think probably 30% of my enjoyment comes from the fact that, I was raised doing that. I got my first phone 20 years ago, and they were all flip phones for like 6 or 7 years. I mean, that's nostalgia plays a huge part in this. I will never deny that.
But that's probably why, too, that the generation after yours and my generation, and yours too, Matt, probably isn't as into it as we are, because they didn't grow up with Razr V3s.
Yep.
Also, they might not be able to afford the pricing of these foldable phones. I think Michael points to a great point, which is, I imagine both of these phones will be looked back with kind of fond eyes of being, a point on the timeline of the advance of smartphones. Like they are definitely a point, that's the direction we're all going in. Like phones will fold down again, or screens will be expandable. This is like, the current pit stop on the way to our phone future. And Samsung's the major company pushing us all, dragging us all forward, even if they don't always hit the mark.
100%.
I mean, and I want to broaden this conversation out to other foldables in a little bit. And
no, let's only talk about Samsung.
We will, because we will recall the other phones that made a mark on our timeline.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this where we put like really sad, tragic music in for all the phones?
In a bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I do want to remind or catch our listener up on what the Z Flip 3 is and what's new about it. So the Z Flip 3 is basically a 6.7-inch-ish bar style phone that you fold down in half. And then on the outside, there is a new 1.9-inch cover display. Before, this was just about 1.1 inches diagonally, and now it's 4 times larger and can show up to 4 lines of notifications at once. It is also touch sensitive. You can swipe up and down, left and right on it to use up to 6 widgets, things like Samsung Pay, things like a volume slider on this outside screen. You can also use it to frame up selfies. I know, it's so sexy. But you can also use it to frame up selfies if you ever want to take a selfie with the phone screen closed and maybe you just don't want people to see what you're doing behind you, or use it as like a mirror for applying eyeliner on the go, I guess.
So I'm posing for a selfie now as we speak.
Same here.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I think we're
on the original Flip though. That tiny screen was completely pointless.
Totally.
Utterly useless.
Absolutely pointless. Here though, literally has value, has utility.
Yes. The big the big screen, I think, is the big improvement with the Z Flip 3, in addition to water resistance and the price drop. But there's also new 120 hertz refresh rate on the inside screen of the Z Flip 3 5G, as well as the typical stuff like new chipsets on both of these things, right? Snapdragon 888. And I'm sure both Michael and I will have reviews for you soon for all the details on that stuff. But right now, early impressions, the Z Flip 3 5G seems to be the one that most people are interested in, at least in my circle. Michael, you and I are both like big fans of this thing because yes, it's a flippy boy. We love the Razr vibes.
Amen. God,
but is that right to kind of sum up those changes about the Flip 3 that way? Like basically a new screen, water resistance, and a price drop are the big generational improvements here.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of bust it down. There are little details that creep in here and there, which some of them are so small I even forgot about them in the hands-on just because there was so much to cover. But
I know, same.
They've corrected a lot that I did complain about. I mean, this 120 hertz, people love it, but the screen is also brighter on the inside, which carrying the Flip for a year, I was like, I can't use this in the sun. This sucks. So that's better. It's actually usable now. Also, What was the other thing? Oh, they added a speaker, so we get our full stereo
Right,
experience now
stereo
when you're listening.
speakers.
Yeah, which is
Nice.
these just little tweaks that, again, were it a slab smartphone, I would barely even be able to stay awake long enough to talk about it. But because it's such a new category and they have all these fixes still to make, it's nice to see them applied. But at its core, yeah, a lot of the stuff is the same, and particularly the cameras, which is a shame.
I've got a question for both of you two, because I don't have a flippy boy here with me. I am the flippy boy in my house. But my question is,
you do flip. This is true.
I do flip. My question is, the flex modes, those kind of features.
Yes.
Are you using them? If so, which ones? And which ones are you not even remotely going near?
Do you want me to go first? Yes. Matt, I'll just say you can go ahead and guess which of the flex mode applications I use the most.
Selfie camera.
Exactly. I love one thing I was telling my therapist about that I love
every time
on the fold and the flip is that because they bend and they can hold their upper half of the screen up, they basically have a built-in kickstand, right? And that's the so-called flex mode. So on the fold, it's kind of more like a mini laptop, and on the flip, it's just like almost like a compact mirror that you're holding up open. So for me, I've taken this to the gym and I've been like, all right, I want to see my form, but there's no mirror available in the gym. So I'm just gonna like open the selfie camera, prop it up.
What kind of Spartan
ledge.
gym are you going to that doesn't have a mirror?
No, I made up an excuse to use. I made up an excuse to use
yeah,
it.
That calling you out on your BS.
But yeah, no, using selfie mode in flex selfies on the camera app in flex mode is one of my main uses, just because it's self-propping. It props itself up. But you, Fisher, what is your biggest use of flex mode?
I'm using it right now. It's propped up on my desk under the mic stand here, and I'm not using flex mode. Flex mode, I think, look, it's as you just described it, Sherlyn. It's like, yeah, you fold it up to between 90 and 100 degrees or something like that. And in some apps, the phone will take advantage of that and split the UI for you. There is one little change here. You can now switch the camera from screen to screen. You can use the viewfinder on either side of the screen, which is very useful. Yes, selfies. Sherlyn enjoys a cameo anytime I have to demo this feature, because we had one Google Duo call over a year ago, and I still use that piece of stock footage on the original Z Flip. But I don't use it for that. I typically don't leverage flex mode in the software sense. I just prop the phone up, because it's very tough to describe in audio terms, but when you're just letting it sit there propped up on a table and scrolling through, say, a feed like a Twitter feed or your notifications, or keeping an eye on where your Uber driver or DoorDash driver is, it is just easier, more ergonomic to see, even when it's just a clock or a timer in the kitchen. There are so many little things that in and of themselves are not a reason to buy this or even use it in this way. But when you take 47 of them together over the week, and then you switch back to a slab phone and you realize you can't do that, it's like, I missed that. That is useful. And even when I use the Razer 5G, which I adore, I miss the flex mode ability too. I miss the ability to just pose the phone in a posture that is more ergonomically appropriate for the situation in which I'm using it. So it's very useful in ways that you don't necessarily think of.
I hear you. I mean, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of little thoughts about, like, I agree with you. Actually, I wish that maybe they're still working on bringing flex mode to more apps. So not all apps support flex mode just yet. But I kind of also wish they would just give you the option, I think, to disable flex mode for some specific apps, just because on Twitter, I don't know what flex mode is going to look like whenever or if ever they implement it. But what if they only devote the top half of the screen to seeing your feed? Then that's going to be completely useless. I don't want to have that as my flex mode. So we'll see. Of course, there's a lot more details and impressions that we're going to only be able to kind of tell the audience once you've spent more time reviewing this. One thing I already heard and agree with from one of my Twitter followers is that for the Z Fold, at least, a lot of people hate that the outer screen is still so narrow. This is one of the most common complaints I've heard. So something, we'll address when we're talking about it in a review. But I do want to go and zoom out on this larger issue of foldables in general, and talk about the blips on the timeline that Matt was telling us about. we barely ever talk about Huawei anymore on this podcast on Engadget, if only because we're just not very sure what the company is doing with its face recognition tech being used in, China's treatment of Uyghur people. But it is important to note that Huawei was one of the biggest challengers to Samsung early on in this game with the Mate X foldable. And initially, it did a version that folded outwards, so the external screen was the foldable one, and everyone was like, no, that's going to break even more easily. But do you think that moved the needle at all for anyone? Like Huawei's efforts in the foldable space did it give Samsung any
I think so, yeah.
fear?
Like a competition, anything that would light a fire under them, I think. Also, Huawei is one of the few tech companies like Samsung that has sheer economic might and willingness to throw millions of dollars at something to make it work or not work. It almost seems at times with Huawei that it's irrelevant whether they have a hit device. They'll just keep full court pressing, which is what Samsung did many a year ago.
Yes.
So it's their playbook.
Fisher, what do you think about the Mate? What do you think about the Mate foldable? And also, what were your standout foldable devices that weren't from Samsung?
Yeah, the initial Mate blew my brains off. Like when I was using it at Mobile World Congress, we were that first one with that wraparound external display that you talked about. I don't know if we were in the same briefing, but we were probably 15 media foaming at the mouth to touch this thing. They had made it clear.
Oh yeah, it was like a theme park.
To touch it. Yeah, they were like, look, you go in there, you do not touch it. You just look at it, you photograph it.
Yep.
And then I think it was Matt Swider or somebody who was just like, can I just feel the display? And the minute a finger went on that thing, it was over. I mean, we stole it from the person, and then we all had like the 20-minute hands-on session with it personally because we could not resist touching it. But as you said, it would have broken, but it was nice to have that pressure on Samsung. And it was nice to have that pressure on Samsung from Motorola and from, Xiaomi. I've used that one. It's not that great.
Okay.
But from other manufacturers, from Oppo with its rollable, from LG, RIP, LG Mobile, RIP with its rollable. It's important that Samsung feels pressure to keep up the quality and to keep up the pace.
They're showing the video of that, the Huawei Mate X.
With the first hands-on.
Yeah, the chaotic one, just right now.
Oh, I
mean... go ahead.
At this point, the Huawei exec's still holding it,
before the turn.
Before the chaos.
So you were talking about the other brands that did it too.
I think it's just a shame that Samsung seems to be like carrying this solo. I mean, with Motorola, we have heard nothing about our new Motorola Razr this year, which probably means we're not going to see it this year. Hopefully we'll see it next. But if it's just it, I'm a little surprised that Samsung released these when it did. It doesn't seem like it seems like it's seizing the opportunity to secure its spot as the pioneer, right?
Yes.
But I really wish that other manufacturers, we keep hearing that TCL will come in later in the year, particularly with an affordable one, because they've been showing us concepts for foldables for years. And I think that'll be important to your earlier point, Sherlyn, about affordability. It is really important that these come down to price points that more people can afford, because fun should also not be exclusive to people who have $1,000 to waste on a phone. So I look forward to seeing that, but I wish the pace of competition would increase.
Matt, I mean, you're in Europe where you have more access to, I think, different, phones from different brands. Do you feel like is the sentiment towards those brands and the phones, whether they be foldables or not, just kind of more open and welcome there?
Yeah, I don't think it's consumers that have the power to make that decision, to be honest. But you see a lot more of the kind of the Chinese upstarts. That I wouldn't call them an upstart anymore, to be honest. But I'm thinking of Realme. I'm thinking OnePlus. I'm thinking ZTE. I didn't say Z there. All these companies, I feel like they can get more of a foothold here. And there does seem to be less drama, at least, than compared to the US when it comes to these devices. Funnily enough, I haven't seen many people with a foldable.
Oh, yeah, no. Me neither. Not a single person out in the real world.
Not even tech journalists. Like, apart from Michael, Basil Cronfley, friend to the stars, he also has one. I think he's using the Fold 2 as a daily driver at the moment. but that's it. I rarely see a tech journalist pull one out of their bag.
Anecdotally, too, it seems that there's just generally less interest in foldables from a more mainstream audience. I feel like our videos have fewer views.
It's the price. It's the price.
Could be.
My eyeballs just jumped out of my head. You and I do not live in the same place.
Oh, really?
What, you see lots of foldables?
I can't use. No, I don't see any of them. No. But I cannot use mine in public. I say this on a lot of podcasts. I can't use it.
Oh yeah, people love them. They love to see them.
Stop me on the street, and I say this a lot, but I live in Brooklyn. It's a very hip place. It's a very judgy place, and so I would expect people to be making fun of me for it, or just kind of snidely glaring. But no, everyone asks, and everyone is excited. They're all at least curious, and it's all a positive curiosity, because it always ends with, "Oh well, how much is that?" And then I tell them, and then they're like, well,
yes.
I mean, again, it's Brooklyn, so they have the money. But
that's so expensive. Here's your $15 latte.
Right.
Millennial problems.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But the interest is very high and these are all normals. These are not tech nerds.
Yes.
So.
I think that's what it is some of the lack of interest we've seen in this year's Galaxy Unpacked, at least the summer one, is that there's no note. So a lot of the usual power user fans just haven't shown up. And then for them, they may be less interested in finding out about the foldables specifically, or Samsung just gave away too much information up front. We don't know. But you are right, Fisher, that like one of the things I'm most excited about with these review units is just taking them out. Like I can't wait for someone to stop me in the street and be like, is that the new phone? Because I have not had that experience yet. I haven't used a foldable out in the wild, barring that one day 2 years ago when we used the Z Flips in the city for hands-on. But yeah.
Well, there's an exclusivity that the exclusivity is a component to the appeal at this point. It really is.
Yeah.
It exposes a bit of a character flaw in me. Like I remember multiple occasions when the first time I saw someone carrying the new phone that I had just bought, because in my mind, the value of that phone just dropped to like 50%. I was like, damn it.
Yes. Yes. So true.
Right. I mean, that's a part of it. And I feel like that is something that started to come off of the foldables this year from Samsung, not because the price is down, but because of what Samsung had to do to get that price down. Nick on the Android Central podcast yesterday made a great point. Like, used to be you'd buy a Fold and get a big box and the presentation is great, and don't forget your custom credit card and your fancy desserts. And now it's like they come in a cardboard box that looks like is nothing special, doesn't even have a charging brick in it, and you're like, here you go, congratulations, you're a member of the Fold family.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Fold. Come on, Michael. It was right there.
Ever since I named my series Into the Fold, I'm not allowed to make any more bad puns.
Yeah, he's not. He's done. That's it.
That wouldn't even stop me. That wouldn't even slow me down.
It's a legal thing here in the States.
Yeah. No,
Too
but to your point, yes, Fisher, the box does seem smaller than usual this year. There is no brick in the box, which I think after having paid $1,800, people would be right to be a little miffed that they're getting shortchanged on something like a power brick. I personally prefer an environmentally friendly approach, so I don't mind smaller boxes and fewer unnecessary components. But again, there are people who need them and expect them in the boxes. They've used out their old ones too, and so need a replacement sometimes. I get that. But I wanted to ask you too, while we have you here as a foldable expert, I keep forgetting the name of that company that did the very first foldable. It was this startup. Did it start with an E or something? Royal, right. FlexPi.
Yeah.
FlexPi. Yeah, the FlexPi was the phone. Royal was the company. They're quite big, I think. The folding phone was kind of a hobby for them, or a showcase to display their display technology, as I recall. But I think they provide display panels to some mobile manufacturers, but mostly on like a bigger, those wraparound skyscraper billboard. I think they make some of them.
Gorgeous. I mean, those are big. Yeah. I because when you said Samsung was a pioneer, I just wondered if, because I feel like Royal was the first to really have a workable prototype. It was showing people at a CES. And I wonder if it maybe beat Samsung to the punch, and should we be calling
it was Royal the first one. It was the first one, I think, that people got to see in the flesh.
Yeah.
I can recall. Because then the Huawei one was MWC, wasn't it? A few months after. And then Samsung happened a bit after that. That's why we were all desperate to touch Yeah, I think that's why we were also desperate to touch the Huawei one, because it was like the phone that was going to arrive first, I think.
Right.
Even though it didn't really.
Oh, man.
Huawei,
Ish.
Yeah, you're bringing back a great memory, because Huawei and Samsung were literally across the hallway from each other on the show floor. And on one side, you had Samsung with the Galaxy Fold, the first one, in this like lucite block with 18 security guards around it. You could barely get a shot of it with a camera. And then across the hall at Huawei, they're like, we will show you that you can get close to it. And I was like, oh, great. And yeah, we were driven so mad by desire that we grabbed it.
Oh, well, but okay, so let's go back to Samsung for a moment. There's not just S Pens and foldables that the company unveiled earlier this week. I'm so broken. But also 2 new watches. I think one of the biggest things I was excited about on these watches is this would have been our first look at the new Wear OS that Samsung and Google co-engineered. And then also there's some new hardware here in terms of the new 3-in-1 bioactive sensor that does optical heart rate scanning, electrical heart rate monitoring, as well as bioelectrical impedance analysis, basically a body composition measurement tool. I wasn't expecting that, but I appreciate it. And the new Wear OS, I'm just going to speed through this because, Cliff Notes version of this, we do have sort of a time limit today. But the new Wear OS does not look very much different from Tizen, in my opinion. Fisher, is that correct based on your experience?
It is, and for an interesting reason. Forever manufacturers had to build Wear OS, and Wear OS did not have the capability, or it was restricted to add a layer on top of it. So essentially, if watches are phones, then every watch is running, quote, stock Android. But now with Wear OS 3, manufacturers can put a layer on top of it. So Samsung, the core is Android, but you use the thing and it's like, oh, this is Tizen, isn't it? But it's not. It's just a big, heavy One UI layer. And by heavy, I don't mean it's slow. It's just impenetrable from an aesthetic perspective. It's like, it's a Samsung product. Of course it is.
Yeah. Does this collaboration, I mean, I think one of the big hopes for Samsung and Google teaming up on Wear OS when they announced it anyway, was that this would give them something to finally take on Apple's Watch OS. Do you feel like this might do it, or still kind of too early to say?
I am hopeful. I am optimistic based on the fact that Samsung's Galaxy Watches did well before. Some of this is anecdotal, by the way. Y'all are better probably at knowing the sales numbers on some of this stuff. But I mean, just my videos, whenever I'm doing a watch video, like the Galaxy Watch ones just take off. People love it. And I see more of them out and about, no matter where I am. It seems like I've almost never seen a Wear OS watch in public. I have seen so many Galaxy watches in public.
Yes.
The primary handicap to them was that they had no app ecosystem to speak of. And they were expensive. Now they're still relatively expensive compared to the rest of Wear OS watches, but now they have a whole app ecosystem. So I'm hopeful for them.
I mean, to that end, a lot more people saw our Galaxy Watch 4 hands-on than they did the Flip and Fold hands-ons. So
really? Interesting,
on YouTube.
Wow.
I think it's because we as reviewers, in general, people as well, I think have long recognized that Galaxy Watches are the best watch for Android people. And that might be why the volume is so high.
That's not saying much.
It's not a high bar. Yeah. No. It's not a high bar at all.
It's a really solid 6 out of 10.
It's right. Well, it's the easiest one to recommend because they've been consistent. And Wear OS has just had so many challenges. So, but and also, are y'all also fans of the rotating bezel? Because
I love it. I love it.
So
can take it or leave it. Can take it or leave it.
Really? Not a fan of.
I don't think smartphones need a circular display. I get why people want them, but I don't think they need them.
Right.
Smartwatches, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Smartphones. I mean, there are circular smartphones now. Go ahead.
Oh, they need more of them.
I want to just quickly wrap up the wearable segment, but you're right. I was surprised that more people are interested in the watch than they are the foldables. But that just might be a general commentary on the state of foldables so far, is that, like, yes, they are improving and iterating, but not to the point where, a large audience is excited about them yet. And then as for the watches...
I know this is Yeah, I mean, sorry to butt in, and it's the same comment I make after you make every point. It might just be again the prices. Like,
yes,
it's a lot cheaper to get a Samsung Wear OS, to get the Watch 4 or the Watch 4 Classic. It's what,
right,
a quarter, a fifth of the price of a Galaxy Fold 3, less
ish.
Yeah. I mean,
there's
a danger in using audience numbers too, right? Because my audience numbers are completely different, right? And it's
right.
It just depends on.
Oh, totally.
These are certainly much more accessible than the foldables, but
still prohibitively priced.
Yeah, I do wish Samsung would give us a bigger variety of hardware aesthetics. I feel like the Galaxy Watch has kind of looked the same for 4 years, and I don't. Yeah, like that's why I keep buying Wear OS watches, because the platform has been terrible, but Fossil alone has like 7 brands that make really good looking watches, and watches need to look good.
Yes,
let's be real.
I'm a watch person. And I would love to talk a little bit more about the body composition measurement tool, but I think we're going to have to save that for a later conversation. This episode is going to be super long if we do. But I would hope to be able to have you back on the show, Michael, to talk more about Samsung, foldables, fun phones, retro phones, all of that stuff.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed this time. Flew by. So thank you for letting me talk my face off in here. I really
and other parts. Yeah. Talk here. Yeah. Where can the people find you online if they want to find your work and talk to you?
All the videos we've been talking about at YouTube, I'm at the Mr. Mobile, TheMrMobile, and I am also that on Instagram and Twitter a little bit. I can also be found on Twitter at Captain2Phones, Captain the number 2 phones, and I really mean it. I'm very, very happy to have joined you guys today, and I thank you for. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a guest. It's been a lot of fun.
It's lovely to see you as always. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, we're going to cut here for audio, but now we're going to be able to talk to the audience for 10-ish minutes, Michael Fisher.
It's perfect for me. Should I terminate the audio side or just keep it going?
No, keep the audio side going just in case.
Roger.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions that I've logged, so we're going to try to run through a few of these. So first one is general questions about Mr. Mobile's headphones and recording setup. So we talked about this a little bit before we went on the air, but just like let's go from the top of the head to what's in front of you. So headphones and then mic, and then what's the mic running into?
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, these headphones that I'm using right now are just incidentally what I happen to have around. They are, I think, old review units. Sony XM3s, noise canceling headphones, very highly rated. Going into a 3.5mm cord into a MacBook Pro, which is using as an audio interface a Tascam US 2x2 interface, and the mic is a C414 XLS by AKG. Came to me highly recommended by Juan Carlos Bagnell, and it has not done me wrong in 6 years. So a wonderful microphone.
AKG, a good company. Moving right along, user Peleg Samesh asks, they have a question. They want to know whether or not the Galaxy Watch will get blood pressure monitoring in the US. Now, this is something that is also a regulatory issue, isn't it?
Well, so the wording has always been that, yes, in the US, they're pending FDA clearance, but I think they did get FDA clearance on their older models, and the BP monitoring is something that they've marketed as like part of the specs capabilities here in the US. So outside the US, less likely, I think. Fisher, do you know, does it line up with
Google that? The last thing I see is from Screen Rant Tech is the Watch 3 faced delays. USA had to prove that its data isn't false or misleading. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there was some talks about his FDA stuff, but as far as their older Galaxy watches, they've always had to like let us know when there's a software update coming for the BP monitoring. I personally haven't ever used their BP monitoring on a review unit yet, so we don't know. But it is listed in the spec sheet as a possible upcoming feature for the Watch 4. So, like Ben said, there's regulatory stuff happening in the background that might be delaying it.
Okay, and then we've got another couple of questions. Let's go back to the phones. So, Mark Dell, superstar commenter and emailer now, Mark Dell. Remember, you can always email comments to podcast@engadget.com also. Asks, Mr. Mobile specifically, with Samsung coming in at under $1,000 with good software, IPS flagship CPU, and 120 hertz for a foldable, do you think this will make it very hard for others to enter this space and keep Foldable innovating?
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to make it very difficult for other companies to come in at that price point. I absolutely think that's true. But I think that doesn't mean impossible. I think other companies can certainly make the choice to say, well, look, this is going to be a loss leader. We're going to lose money on every unit, but we have to carve out a space for ourselves in this market. So, and, if we're TCL, say, well, we have the scale to do that. We can lose money for 10 years and it's fine. So it's not a hopeless battle, but I think it will be more difficult for competitors. Yeah. And please, Motorola, release that Razr 3. I will buy it.
So then moving to more cultural stuff, like how you guys were talking about how you couldn't walk down the street with a foldable without getting stopped and such. There was a very, very interesting comment from user Canine Play that said they work in an Alaska post office, allegedly. And they've got 5 regular customers in their town who work in the oil fields and have that oil field money. And they have the most expensive phone possible and keep on getting folding phones, including a Duo. So
that's interesting to me, because are they taking them out to rigs? Are they taking them, like, how are you protecting them?
I'm
put them in a locker or something.
I'm hoping that they keep them in the locker. This is not just something that they just have in their pocket. Like, I understand that working in oil fields is good money, but not good enough money to have your phone shatter when, like, some huge thing that you're carrying shifts and slides down your body. Like, it's difficult work, but it's also really
just to make sure, we've all got experience working in oil fields, right? So we know exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sterling actually has the most experience out of all of us.
15 years on the rigs.
Totally.
But
jack-up rigs.
That was
just jack-up rigs offshores. Yeah.
That was a blisteringly interesting comment. I want to hear way more from Canine Play. Canine Play, if you want to email us at podcast@Engadget, just tell us way more about what it's like working at a post office in Alaska. Please do. Like, I'm so interested in this.
Ditto.
Then we've got another comment from Paul Edmondson Jones, who said that the last time that they were stopped on the street for something related to tech was when they had the first generation Apple Watch. They couldn't go anywhere without people stopping them and people asking about it. He said he went to KFC once and everyone came in, like, from their stations at the fryer or like other cashiers at other registers to look at the phone or excuse me, look at the Apple Watch on their wrist. That was just a really interesting.
Do we have time for me to piggyback on that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Every time I use the Z Flip to pay for something over the past year, which is very often, maybe 50% of the time, the cashier will say, "Oh, is that the new Razr?" So Motorola is actually really doing a good job on the mindshare game. They've got the big banner at Yankee Stadium. Like, the Motorola is doing a good job at winning in mindshare. I think they just need to do a lot of other stuff.
That's interesting, right? Because I think when you think Samsung foldables, you think splitting vertically, and if it's a clamshell, you think Razr, right? You don't think Samsung immediately.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, and then Canine Play actually came in the comments with an update, and they said that these oil field guys wear overalls and they have a special down pocket for their very expensive phone.
Makes sense.
Canine Play, I'm serious. Send us an email because we want to hear so much more about the weird intersection of tech and money and also the postal service in Alaska. I want to hear everything about this.
Same.
Okay.
And,
really, really, really quickly. Hi,
Sure.
the Tylotech was listening on their way to work, but there was another question from I forget the name now. We have like a minute left because we have really, really tight schedule today. So I just wanted to get to the question. Charles Monroe was asking Paul Edmondson Jones, can you pair an Apple Watch with a Samsung ? Nope. From what I hear, this is one intriguing development I've heard, Fisher. Apparently, iOS doesn't work on the new watches. Is that true?
Yeah.
Or there's no iOS support. Yeah.
I think there's no iOS support for them, but honestly, like if you have an iPhone and you don't have an Apple Watch, then that is the watch you should use with an iPhone, because Apple makes it so difficult for other watches to work with the iPhone. So
totally. Yeah. And then another one, Ryan Fairfield saying there are dozens of Wear OS users, dozens.
Accurate. Story checks out.
Ben, I think we have to let Fisher go, but did you have any other thing that you wanted to call out from the live chat?
No, not really. But there were a lot of people who loved seeing Mr. Mobile on. And
yes, exactly.
So internally, let's we're all about peeking behind the curtain on these live streams. The number of times that we've talked about just doing kind of like a phone nostalgia tour with Mr. Mobile we've talked about it like 3 or 4 times in meetings, and then like other stuff has come up. So Michael, please come back. Let's do that. Velvety voice, like we need your velvety voice back on this show sooner rather than later.
And I need friends I can jam with about phones, so this works out. There's synergy here. Let's explore.
We have been trying to do this, Fisher. We have literally had 700 conversations where we're like, let's hang out soon, and then it doesn't happen because we're so bogged down by work.
Come over here today. We'll do coffee.
I will be in the hood, so I'll let you know. I'll see you tonight.
Do that. And really, this I'm down to especially the nostalgia phones trip. Let's definitely do that, because I'm overdue for another When Phones Were Fun episode anyway. So let's make it happen.
All right, thanks for joining us today. Can't wait to have you back. You can save your file, export it according to what Ben told you, and then send it to Ben or me on whichever channel helps.
We're on the same email, with that
thread.
Got it. I'll just use that address. I'll do a drive link if that's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
And you can disconnect whenever.
All right. Yep. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. All right, Ben, I'm going to do the intro to the other news section, and then we'll see. I'll let Carissa know it's okay to dial in.
Oh, Carissa's dialed in.
She's here.
Oh, she is.
Do you not see her?
Hi, Carissa. I know. I full screened my thing. Hi. Perfect. Okay.
So,
yes, you
did. Did you find your Ethernet adapter? Boo.
Okay. My Wi-Fi. I'm sorry.
Okay, but just please make sure to put your phone on airplane mode and start the voice memo recording, and then Sherlyn, you're clear to do other news.
Okay. So just because Samsung had an event this week didn't stop other companies from releasing all kinds of news, and there's plenty to go over, but I wanted to start with something that's been controversial and hotly debated in media and social media lately, and it actually happened last week while we were recording last week's episode. And what I'm talking about, I don't know if you've heard about this yet, Matt, but it is Apple's new CSAM detecting feature. It's causing a lot of confusion, I think. Okay, Matt, I heard a breath intake. I'm sorry, and I didn't want to.
I think that was someone else.
Okay, go ahead. So never mind. You go ahead, and then I'll intro Carissa.
What would you like me to say?
Only if
I'm waiting to hear Carissa's. Oh no, I'm just a dumb. Okay. I'm just a dumb blonde.
Cool. I'll intro Carissa now. Ben, this is where we're going to pick it up. Okay. And so joining us to make sense of all of this is someone who's been following all of the developments and really has been talking to Apple, well, listening to Apple anyway, is our senior editor, Carissa Bell. Hey, Carissa, thanks for joining us to explain all of this.
Yeah. Hello.
So can you tell us from the, I guess, just kind of the basics, right? What is Apple doing here?
So they announced 3 separate things that are all kind of like child safety features. One, I'll start with the most controversial, the one that's getting the most attention, and that's this new system that's designed to detect CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material. And this is something that a lot of companies do already. Facebook, Google, many other platforms, they're already kind of looking for this material. What's interesting here is that this is something that Apple has done in the past, but they have not done it for photos. So now with this new feature, they're going to be able to basically check photos on people's phones if you have iCloud photos enabled, and be able to, if they find that somebody has a large amount of this or a certain amount of this, then they can kind of refer to the authorities and potentially escalate the situation.
And so people are concerned that this completely goes against Apple's whole thing they've been saying for years and years about how your privacy is so important to them, right? Like, isn't that the biggest complaint now?
Yeah, I think so. I think because Apple has made such an issue of they've made such a commitment to privacy in the past. In 2016, they famously, stood up to the FBI when they wanted them to unlock an iPhone, and they refused to do that, and they got a lot of praise, I think, and criticism at the time for that. And it also has to do with the way that they're approaching this. They're doing it in a way that they say is kind of privacy protecting, and they're doing it in the most sort of secure and private way possible. But what that means is that some of this processing is happening on users' devices, and people feel like that's going against kind of other things that they've said. Do you remember Apple had that big billboard one year at CES that said, "What happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone." So this feels like they're a violation of that to a lot of people.
I wonder if people have really something to be worried about, right? Because I'm trying to understand what Apple is doing here, and I believe part of it is that they're using a hash system to make sure the stuff that they're scanning A, stays on your device, and B, they only really flag something when they feel like there's a match against something that's in a known database of child sexual abuse images. But it seems like, I guess my question to you is, do you feel like people have validation, like to be this concerned?
Well, I think you're right that it's tricky. I mean, on one hand, I think everyone agrees that this is a huge problem. Apple can and should be doing more to find people that are trafficking and this kind of stuff. It's really does a lot of damage, and is really a horrible thing. On the other hand, I think a lot of the concerns are probably valid, at least. On another issue is that we just don't. Apple has explained this, but it is sort of a novel way of approaching this problem. So we kind of just have to take their word for it. That how this works. That this algorithm that they've developed for hashing won't create false positives,
right?
That it won't that it won't be possible to somehow abuse the system, right? Practically, there's also something a lot of people brought up is that once you create something like this, it's very difficult to or it can become difficult to kind of not expand it to include other things. Like we mentioned with Apple and FBI, they've already faced pressure in the past from from law enforcement to look for things or do things that that they don't want to do. If you build this kind of scanning system, it it seems likely that at least other governments, law enforcement is going to at least try to get them to start looking for other types of content as well.
Yeah. I remember when the open letter came out a few days ago, and it seemed like a lot of the critics the issue they took was it would be offering this kind of backdoor to end-to-end encryption. The idea that because all this stuff is done on device, which normally sounds like a good thing, right? When we hear that, say, Siri is processing things on device, we're like, oh, cool. Right. So it doesn't need a secure data connection. But yeah, because this is happening on the device, that means, according to these critics, that it kind of circumvents that kind of protections you've had from messages sent to and from people. It's odd though, isn't it? Because some critics say it's a good thing, others say it's not. Then you have Facebook elbowing in because Facebook loves to get a shot in on Apple when it can, right? So it's time for Facebook to shine. What do you think of? Was it the WhatsApp head who's been talking about this, Carissa? What do you think of his comments?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Facebook and Apple have been going back and forth for a long time. Facebook has pretty much always been on the receiving end of that from Apple. So yeah. I think to me, it wasn't surprising that they saw this as like a big opportunity to kind of hit Apple on privacy. Yeah, he said that it was that Apple was building a surveillance state, and he mentioned China and all these other issues, and basically said, this isn't how technology should work in free countries, which I think gets at something, a reaction that a lot of people have had. But on the other hand, I think Apple at least would probably say that he's probably missing a lot of the nuance of how this is actually built.
I wish we had more time to dwell on this, but I think we'll just kind of close this section for now on a couple of thoughts. One is that these new features are rolling out in the new iOS 15, which is still in a public beta and not yet an actual. So these features aren't actually active right now, right, Carissa?
Yes, that's right. And I think it's probably also worth mentioning that this applies to people who have iCloud photos enabled. So if you disable that feature, then this doesn't work. This doesn't happen.
Yeah. So that's the other thing I wanted to say.
At this point as well, Apple's are still going on with it, aren't they? At this point in time.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I know, Carissa, you're working on an explainer on this. I'm not sure if it's already on the site, but our listener and viewer, if you want to get kind of all the details about what's going on and what has been going on, make sure you stay tuned or keep an eye on Engadget.com for the explainer Carissa is writing up. So thanks for joining us to quickly make sense of this today, Carissa. We're going to let you go and hopefully bring you back on to talk more in depth about this in future.
Thank you.
Thanks, hon. So Carissa, same as before, you can send the audio over to Ben.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not sure if I made it clear to you that we were only going to spend like a few minutes on this and then.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we'll hopefully come back and talk more about it. We're just pressed for time today.
Okay, no, I totally understand. It's been a week.
Yeah.
I think it probably makes sense to maybe talk more about this because this is a new beta thing in the new iOS. So like when the next iOS rolls out, let's talk more about this. But yeah, we have other news to get to. We've got a hard out. So bye, Carissa.
Yep. Bye. Thanks,
Carissa. Nice to talk to you.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to speed past all of the rest, and then you chime in whenever. Okay.
Ready to chime.
Yes. So like I said, there were a lot of other companies that announced new things, and we're going to blaze right past them. For all the details, though, you can always look for them on Engadget.com. So HP released a new Chromebook with a Snapdragon CPU. This isn't the first Chromebook with a Snapdragon processor, but it is a nicer looking one than the earlier version from Acer we've seen before. So if that's something that tickles your fancy, go look it up. TCL made new Google TVs, which for some reason Twitter was all talking about this week, at least my Twitter. I think because TCL used to be a hardcore Roku stan, and now they're making Google TVs. Seems like in the streaming stick or streaming TV game, there is a little bit of competition amongst OEMs now. And then finally, something that I think it's kind of the stuff of nightmares. Xiaomi has its own robot dog now. It announced it this week, and the marketing images are just terrifying. This dog looks like it wants to kill you. Matt, have you seen this Xiaomi dog?
Yeah, it's quite intense. It looks like a video game enemy. I'll give it that much. It does. It's definitely more muscular and aggressive looking than, say, an Aibo. But from what Xiaomi were pitching it like, it seems more like a Boston Dynamics rival than it is a Sony Aibo rival. It's for robotics enthusiasts, it's for developers, it's for, I think they say, Xiaomi fans. There are dozens of us, to repeat someone else's joke from earlier. So yeah, this is a short run robot. They're going to make 1,000 of them, and yeah, it looks the word I'm thinking of is muscular. Doesn't it just kind of look swole?
It almost looks, I almost am thinking of the opposite word for you, from you, which is I'm thinking skeletal is the word, but skeletal, like lean, muscular. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those people that are not like super buff, but you can tell they work out, that sort of thing.
Guilty.
It's that kind of dog. Matt, this dog has been like on its macros. You know what I mean? Like it's been drinking the protein shakes.
It's been using the Galaxy Watch 4's new body comp tool and really,
it's been pumping
the benefits.
It's called the Cyber Dog, and it's a quadruped robot, and like Matt said, it's really for developers to sort of create applications for, and again, similar in style to the Boston Dynamics dog called Spot. So I'm sure we'll see more. I guess we're gonna see a lot of robot dogs in our life in the future. Who knows what they're gonna be used for? But I guess
Here's
we
another
have
one.
to find out. I know. Here's another one. Okay, so this week there has been a lot of news, but there's also more work to do. Matt, what are you working on?
So when we were planning this podcast, I was like, I don't actually have much on the calendar. Like when it's behind the scenes, work on newsletter stuff or work on kind of stuff that doesn't result in a story on the site. It kind of makes my job sound quite boring. But we have had a few developments in literally the last 24 hours. So I do have a couple of mystery phones on their way to me. It's funny, we mentioned earlier in the call about how the UK it's a bit of a smorgasbord when it comes to smartphones. We get a lot more options than you do in the US. And so we're going to kind of have a deeper dive on some of the devices you can get here. So that should be cool. Sherlyn, as she'll be about to tell you, is busy with other phones as well. So I'm going to hopefully help her out and do some more phones.
Yes.
Apart from that, next Friday, I'm going to a DC-themed restaurant in Mayfair, London. So Mayfair's like the fancy bit of London.
Yes, right.
Like the old-fashioned fancy bit. DC Comics. So it's this themed, multi-layer, multi-experiential restaurant with like augmented reality technology. And it sounds really cool. I'm hoping they'll feed me, but they might not because I know it's really expensive. Anyway, I'm going to be taking a tour. I'm taking a tour of that Friday. I just need to get news cover. So if any Engadget senior editors are watching this, I'd love for you to cover my news so I can go eat a meal in Mayfair.
Man. I'm already on news that day, so I can't help you out there. Sorry. But the other work I'm working on is, I'll just say, come back next week because I'll have spent more time with the new Samsung devices to be able to kind of give you even more thoughts. And hopefully at least one of my reviews will be up next week. But let's just say it is review season. And next week, you're going to see a ton of reviews from us at Engadget, and I'm so thankful that Matt has been around to help ease some of this. You were helpful at the Samsung hands-on event that they had in London for you guys as well, and some of these phone reviews that you're doing too. So we're a team. We're
a team, guys. We don't even hate each other that much.
Not too much, and when we're not hating on each other or on work, we're at least trying to relax. And for entertainment, to relax, Matt and I sometimes talk to each other, but sometimes we do other stuff. I'm gonna start with my pick for this week while Devendra is out because I know he's going to say this. I know he's going to recommend you guys watch this. I want to beat him to it. I am telling y'all to go watch Suicide Squad. This is the new film. I think it's the Zack Snyder. I think Zack Snyder was involved in the production of this. God, the Venture's going to kill me if I get this wrong. So I'm not going to
how you're already ruining this. It's called The Suicide Squad, by the way. Because Suicide Squad.
Yeah, because there was another Suicide Squad movie in 2016. This is just like not necessarily a sequel. It's kind of a sequel, but not really. You've got some same characters. The return of Joel Kinnaman and Margot Robbie, for example. But then all new characters as well. You've got Idris Elba. You've got John Cena. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his last name. Cena. Yeah.
It's directed by James Gunn, who's the Guardians of the Galaxy director.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes. So, and then a breakout fan favorite character called King Shark. It's pretty awesome. This is great. This is if you've liked old episodes or old versions of the Suicide Squad movie, I think this one is going to be enjoyable for you as well. I certainly loved it. I'm not the biggest DC universe fan. Matt, have you seen this?
No, it's on my to-do list. I'm seeing how I can kind of stream it from home. I don't plan on going to the cinema. But yeah, I've heard lots of good stuff about it. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I've also got the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, but that feels more like what the director's
It's a 6-hour endeavor. It's
crazy. Yeah, I'm just not sure. I feel life's too short.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe it's a good battery. Maybe it's a good battery rundown test for one of these phones when it arrives.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's the plan.
For you, I don't know where it's available to stream. At least the Suicide Squad, but for those of us in the US, it's on HBO Max. Is where I watched it anyway, as well as the Snyder cut. Matt, how about people who are, how about something that you can enjoy? Tell people what you're enjoying.
What can I enjoy? Nothing. No, I can't. Well, at the moment, I'm not, we've all been spending a year and a half trapped at home streaming everything.
Yeah.
So I've been running out of stuff to watch on Netflix and other streaming services. So the one streaming service I always forget that I'm already paying for is Amazon Prime Video, because I'm more into the Prime part of Amazon Prime, less the video part. But yeah, so I've got this kind of rich back catalogue of shows that I've only started tapping into now. So I've been watching, I think it's called Invincible. It's a very cool comic book.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of takes an incredible twist right at the start. And yeah, I've got a few more episodes left on that to watch. It's very entertaining. I cannot recommend it enough. And it seems like it's going to be soft and cozy, but it's anything but. Yeah, it's a really good, compelling show, and it's been around for a year or two now. So please do watch that. And the voice talent is incredible on it. I don't want to spoil anything.
Amazing.
No, but everyone. There's even like a character in the first. Yeah, there's a character in the first opening scene of the show. There's this no mark security guard who's not in the show again, apart from this opening scene, and it's voiced by John Hamm. And it's like, what? How much money did they have? But yeah, there's Man in the High Castle. There's The Boys. I'm trying to think. I've just got so many shows. I've got Parasite. That's on Prime Video here.
Oh, I moved over to Prime Video. Okay.
At least in the UK. So yeah, I can watch an Oscar-winning movie when I feel like it, which is never Thursday night. But lots of stuff to kind of chew through.
I'll give you a list of things on Prime TV. So Upload is a comedy series about digital afterlife to your list, as well as Utopia. Yeah. Both are really good. And then The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I think, is a breakout, like one of the big early wins for Amazon Prime TV. But you're right. Often people overlook Prime TV as a streaming service, at least elsewhere in the world, if not in the US. So that's definitely a good shout. Anything else, Matt?
I'm also getting back into my Apple Arcade. So this is a subscription gaming service across Apple devices, but mostly iOS. Or you can play games. They kind of went through this very interesting wave where they launched a bunch of like major premium gaming games on the thing, including like a Final Fantasy style RPG, some races, some adventure games, and a kind of like a huge swathe of just like really typical mobile games like chess, Sudoku. And so I've really got back into Sudoku. There's this really cool game called I think it's called Good Sudoku, and it kind of offers up a bunch of tools so you can kind of solve the puzzles yourself.
They should have called it Goodoku.
No, they shouldn't.
No? Okay.
I'm playing this very freaky game called Hitchhiker at the moment, where it's a first-person view game. I'm playing on my phone, but it's really immersive, and something's going to go wrong when you're a weird hitchhiker, and it's already taking a few surreal turns. Like this friendly-looking guy, and he offers you a raisin, and you eat the raisin, and everything gets a bit blurry. But he hasn't drugged you. It's just kind of a false misstep. And there's lots of narrative kind of twists and turns. And I've only played it for about 30 minutes so far, but that's got me quite excited. So that's the thing with Apple Arcade. You still kind of have to sniff around for the good stuff. There's so many games, and some of them are so high quality. There's like a lot of indie titles I think wouldn't have got made if they didn't have Apple paying for them to go on Apple Arcade. It's probably time I do another guide to the best games on it. So maybe that's something I should do in the coming weeks as well.
Add that to your working on.
Add it to the big list.
Okay, I think that's a good break for us. I'll do the outro now, Ben.
Let's do the outro because we've got to let Julio get to his other commitment.
Okay. And we can do like a quick one question Q&A or just a quick roll call shout out after, and then we can let Julio go. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, ready?
Yes.
That's it for the episode this week, everyone. Thank you as always for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our very own Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Ellman. If you want, you can find Matt online at
that Matt Smith on Twitter. Say hello to me there.
And if you have pictures of cute robot dogs, you can send them my way on Twitter as well. I am at Sherlyn Lowe. Email us your thoughts at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review, please, on iTunes. And subscribe on anything that gets podcasts, including Spotify. All right.
Okay, yeah, we're clear.
Ben? Okay, great. Okay, let me just pull up the live chat really quick. We're gonna do 2 to 3 minutes of this. I forgot to get Mr. Mobile to say "Stay mobile, my friends." I've been meaning to do that, but we'll get him back and we'll make him do it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that the best thing that we can do is just do a little shout out of the people who are.
What is that sound?
That's me. Bear with me, guys.
Doorbell rings Britishly. So, a quick shout out to ACBC, Dhruv Karmokar, George Coronel.
George is a friend of ours. George Coronios, I think. Or
George Coronios,
sure,
yes. No, I always have a problem with seemingly Greek names. Neutron Star, Gabriel, D-Man. D-Man is one of our superstar commenters. The Tourig and Chris Angelo Perez was here for a little bit. We have to let our video team go.
Gabriel also, don't forget Gabriel getting to be a regular, I think. And
yes, Gabriel getting to be a regular, but we have to let our video team go. So mute yourself, Matt. Come on.
Dang.
Thank you, everyone. I love you all. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Also to Wilso, who, by the way, was on the live chat yesterday, and I didn't get to shout out.
Okay, so let's try to be nice to our video team.
Yes.
Thank you, video team. This stream comes to you via our video team, which is led by Kyle Mock with Julio Barrientos and Luke Brooks, but it's powered by everyone in the chat. Come on. We really like talking with everyone in the chat, trying to do this super, super fast. Rate the show on iTunes. Come on. We live in a world of algorithms.
Ava too. Okay,
shout out to everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Come back next week.